Hello there, Chris here from Becker's Models, and in part 2 of my look at the Arma 1/72nd scale P51C Mustang, I thought it would be best to compare it to something similar in the lineup that's been around for a little while, and that's the Airfix P51D Mustang, or Mark IV in RAF service. This is, of course, the main difference being the bubble canopy and a few other things that are different from the C, but pretty much we're talking about a similar subject. So the point of this video is I'm going to go over 10 things of difference between these two kits. Who they're, the cost, who they're really intended for. I mean, if you're a first-time modeler, should you go out and buy this? You've heard so many good things about the Arma ones, or should you just stick with the good old Airfix, or something different, another brand. But I've got these two because I really do want to compare them, because three of these can be bought for the same price as one of those. So if that's what you're interested in, and including, I'm going to take them apart and then put them back together again. I'm going to build them both. I'll do a drive test fit of both of them to see how they go together, to see if it suits the sort of modeling you like to do. If you want to hear about that and the 10 things, keep watching. Alright, first thing we have to address is cost. Now this cost me, well, it retails for anywhere between 50 and 60 Australian dollars plus post here. I've heard they're cheaper in Europe and in non-Europe, like the UK. Sorry, I have to put that in, Brexit land. Whereas the Airfix kit, you can easily get this for $20, $22. The only one I could get at the time, I got the gift set, which has got the big bundle of included paints and things. But you can get the basic boxing for about 20 bucks, so 3 to 1. That's the first thing. The second thing is, let's be honest, the intended modeler. This kit, and most Airfix kits, not all of them, they are changing their game, is intended for someone literally to pick up this box, spend a weekend brush painting it, gluing it together with tube glue, brush painting it, putting the decals on, calling it a day. This kit is really more intended for what we call someone who's got AMS, Advanced Modeling Syndrome. This is someone, for example, go watch Will Patterson's build of this. I mean, he's been spending probably 100 hours, 200 hours, I don't know how much time he's been spending, building his, accurizing it, filling panel lines, adding extra detail, multi-layered, chipping the whole, the whole ball and dice. And this is the sort of kit that's suited for that person. In fact, this is the base model. There is another version of this kit called the Expert set, which has even more detail and more things going for it. So really intended for two different types. Now that's not to say that someone who's a bit more advanced and likes their models a little bit more of a challenge can't do this one. In fact, I intend to build this one in the same manner as this, because I've got a similar sort of idea for both. So that's the second thing. The third thing is quality, and to look at the quality, I need to clear this away. We need to look a close look at the parts. Talking about quality, here's the Arma, here's the Airfix. Airfix can be told by the blue soft soapy light plastic that they like to use, and Arma has more of this sort of light medium grey sort of plastic. If you haven't seen my initial impression of the Arma hobby, where I'd go through both Sprue very carefully, well, not carefully, I go very quickly actually, check it out. I'll leave a link up the top here. But what I'm going to go over here is just at first glance, when you look at these two, you can just tell, okay, there's not as many parts with the Airfix. There's a lot more parts. Look at that. There's just, even this first runner is huge. There's different tail designs. There's so many more internal parts. Then with the, you do get external fuel tanks with the Airfix, but you get different types of fuel tanks, bombs, the whole lot. You've got just so much more quality parts involved there. Now I'm going to zoom in and have a look at the Airfix one, so let's just get this out of the way, because like I said, go check out the first part video to see those, but I might compare them when I need to. Let's just go around and have a look at this one. So surprisingly, this one isn't too bad for Airfix. The panel lines, whilst out of scale, are quite tight. It's really hard 172 to get in scale panel lines. This would work on 132, but they're quite petite. They're nice and tight. They're nice. They're not wide. They're not like a Death Star trench like a lot of Airfix kits have. And yeah, looking around overall on the parts, they're really good quality. There's some big sprue gates here and there, but that's not too bad. Tail wheel looks all right. The radiators look good. So this is actually a fairly good quality kit. The internals here on the fuselage, you've got some details there that can be brush painted up nicely. The wheels look alright, they've got a good tread pattern on them. They have a middle seam that has to be taken away, but that's okay. And now let's look at the wings, and I'll zoom in even further. Oh no, let's just stay there. Okay, so the wings aren't too bad either. Again, the panel lines are nice and crisp. You've got raised detail where appropriate here behind these wheel wells, so that's good. Recessed elsewhere. The sprue attachment points are massive, which is, excuse me, on the par for Airfix. But yeah, we got a nice subtle fabric effect there on the rudder. We also have an included pilot, and he's not bad either. I do have some aftermarket pilots, however, for this kit. So finishing off the quality discussion, here let's have a quick look at the Arma one. So the panel lines are similar, but they're a little bit tighter. They're just a little bit more finesse. Again, you've got much more detail here at the lower wing with the raised, actually they're not raised. I know some of them are raised, my mistake. And yeah, there's just more parts. So what would be molded onto the floor is a separate part here for the Arma one. And so yeah, the basic thing is you're getting good quality with the Airfix, but you're getting a higher quality with the Arma, and that's obviously reflected in the price. Let's talk about options. What do you get in the kit? Well, the Airfix kit's quite basic. You only get the one set of markings, okay? And the options available are somewhat limited. You can pose the canopy open if you want, but you can actually do wheels up. So they've engineered so you can close up the wheel wells, or you can go wheels down. There are separate flaps that, just like on the Arma, none of the flying surfaces are posable. So the ailerons, the tail, the elevators, nothing of that. There's not really that much else there in terms of options. The one good thing, of course, I've just mentioned before, is it does include a pilot. So if you want to have a pilot figure, but there are no seat belts, but there's also no seat belts in the Arma hobby. The main difference with the Arma versus the Airfix with options is, of course, you get two versions to do. They give you quite a comprehensive decal sheet. As you can see, the gas one is similar for both, okay? Not the same aircraft, but same unit, I believe. So you get that. You can do open canopies on the Arma, as I explained in my first impression, had a good look. So you can do two different types of canopies, and you can open them both up. You've got three different types of fuel tanks and bomb layouts. You've got only wheels down, but you've got different exhaust stacks. You've got different tails, although I don't think it's included in this. The particular one's included. And what else have we got difference? I think that's about it. So yeah, that's the main difference between the two in terms of the options available. Now, while we're talking about instructions, while we've got them out here, the next thing to do, Airfix follow a really easy format. A4 simple paper, and you know, apart from the 2 pages of bump at the start, 3 pages, look at that, because it's all different things. The instructions are very big, clear, easy for any modeler who's never picked up a set of sprue cutters before, can follow it quite easily. Unfortunately, the paint callouts are in Humbrol. I'll talk about that later. So this is really easy to follow. It's not their exact, the updated instructions they use color code, so they actually show you the part that you've just put in, and that's highlighted and red. But this is simple enough, very simple. Whereas the Arma one, much smaller, dense instruction booklet, and you just get straight into it. And there's a lot of information going on, so you can get tripped up. If you're a beginner, you may get really tripped up and stuff up because there's so much going on here, so much engineering, so many things going on. I mean, you know, we're up to part 16 already, and I think the Airfix one only goes up to, let me just double check. Yeah, it goes up to 22. Okay, and now in this one, we've got 24 parts, and then there's stencils and decals and what have you. So there's a lot more going on in the instructions, and again, this may put a brand new modeler off to do that. What else need to talk about? Decals. Okay, decals, they are, I'm not sure who makes the Arma hobby ones. Sorry about the glare there, but they look really lovely. They're barely any carrier film, but there's a lot more going on there. I mean, you can tell, look at the number of stencils going on. Let me just tighten that up. Okay, you got all the stencils, and you got seatbelt decals, which can work in this scale. It can be pulled off okay. Whereas on the Airfix one, it's just basic markings, a decal for the and it's a blank decal, which looks really naff. I really don't like that, but you know, it's one solution. Whereas here, yep, you get separate dials on the Arma one. Okay, so the Decals, same quality, but you get much more quantity and much more different options with the Arma one. So what have we got left to talk about? Let's have a look. Clear parts. Okay, let me clear this away because there is a bit of a difference in quality going on with the clear parts. So with Arma, all good, standard sort of clear parts. I won't take them out, don't want to scratch them. They were in a separate box, in a separate bag, I should say. That's good. The attachment points are in an obvious spot, which is great. The problem with the Airfix ones, even though they're crystal clear, they're lovely. Okay, can you see that? There's almost no distortion. Unfortunately, the way they engineer it is that the canopies, which is unique to the D model, so maybe it's not a fair comparison, they actually glue onto a canopy frame. Now, if you're not, if you don't have the tool, there are, glues available that will help you with that to get a really nice bond there. I would actually glue that on with Tamiya Extra Thin, let it go off, then mask the canopy and then paint. Yeah, if you don't have those tools and that experience behind you, that could really trip you up, so that's a shame. The other thing too with the Airfix, and it's not unusual, but the windshield is one part, okay? So yeah, it's just one single part there, whereas on the, I'm gonna have to take it out of the bag, so let's just take it out. On the Arma, and like a lot of other kits that are done these days, get out of there, where is it? Okay, here it is. The windshield is actually molded on as a full panel, okay, for that panel that goes in front of the windshield. So you actually drop that in front of, or in this slot of the fuselage. All right, so there's very much less chance of a gap. However, having said that, a few builds have shown that Arma have maybe messed this part up, and you might get a gap there, a step, I should say. So horses for courses. But in terms of clear parts, there's good and bad. It's a case of, it's a shame that Airfix have engineered the canopy that way. It would have been good if they'd made the canopy just one whole piece. Right, the last thing to look at, I think the last thing before I actually start building these things, let me just widen out here, is what Arma have done, thankfully, is they've got a full table here, even though it's quite small, it is readable, of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 paint manufacturers, and they give you the FS. Let me just tighten up really nice and tight so you can read it. For each color call out, they give you a federal standard number. Now, if you're not familiar with that sort of system, it's really easy just to Google that. Just Google FS 37038, comes up as matte black, and then you just, whatever paints that you use, you chuck that on the end of your search term, and it'll come up with the paint call out. I mean, they've given it here for the 7 most popular. So that's great. That's really easy for a beginner or an advanced modeler to go, hey, what color do I need? There's the ballpark. However, unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your point of view, Airfix do this. Okay, so that's part 1D, and that's 33. Well, what's 33? What is it? Well, it's Humbrol 33. And what's Humbrol 33? Well, where's the list? It's not in here. Now, on the box, it may have it. Let's have a look. Yep, there we go. There it is on the box, 33, which is black, obviously. But that's it. You have to rely on the paints that are in the box. All right, so if you don't have these paints, if you've got your own sort, you've got to match them, and they don't give you any way to do that. So again, that's another stumbling block for a beginner, or someone who wants to have a better finish than just the painted on Humbrol enamels, which really, that's the way of the dodo. That's like 50 years ago sort of stuff. So that's a shame. All right, we have to go now and look at the fit. So let's start taking parts off the sprue. Let's talk about the little Airfix kit first. And I forget how small a Mustang is in 1/72. It can fit in the palm of my hand. This went together really, really well. I'm actually quite surprised. The engineering of it is quite straightforward. 2 fuselage halves, and then which go together, and it has that big long cockpit tub which fits nicely. I haven't even glued it in, and it fits nicely on its guide rails there, so it all fits in okay. It might need a tiny little bit of trimming on the edges there. I had to sand off it a little bit just to get these 2 halves to get together, and as you can see, there's a small gap there. That's because these aren't pushed together, which I'll come to in a minute. But yeah, the tail planes are just squeezed in there, engineered to be put on the right way, so you can't put it on the wrong side. The rudder fits in there nicely. There's a really good gap there. I've just got a bit of tape there to hold it in place, but you can pose it, you can deflect it, and it looks great. So yeah, fuselage looks good. I can't see any problems there. There are going to be some seams to fill, which is par for the course, but if you park this on the ground, most people don't fill the seams underneath. I do, because I'm always putting these in the air. Now, as you can see, those flaps are just put in. Haven't glued the flaps in, haven't taped them down either. The one-piece lower wing has the upper wing halves slotted in. Now there is a tiny little gap on the outside there. I might have been a bit too aggressive with my sanding, but once you put a little bit of glue in there, that gap should fill, and maybe a little bit of liquid filler or something like that. The thing that's surprising though, and these flaps are going to continue to come out, so I'll just take them off, is the wing is just snap in there, like that. Okay. And it's a really, really lovely fit. It is pushing the nose apart a little bit because this is just a touch. Let me just zoom in so you can have a look. This isn't a major problem. I'm not saying it's a fault of the kit or anything. It's just this is a very tight fit and it's really lovely. And as we turn it over, there's almost no gaps in the wing roots. Okay, so it's going to go together quite well. Just your usual foundational skills of just a little bit of sanding. I've filed the edge of this just a little bit. It'll need a little bit more, and maybe just a little bit on the inside there. You know, I've only just cut these parts off the sprue and chuck them together. A bit of clamping at the front there, get that in. It'll be fine. So yeah, this is, and also yeah, just the fit of the wings. It's a little bit tight. And I think some of them, oops, in camera, Chris. Some of the male pegs there might be a little bit too proud. Maybe cut them off. But if I squeeze that with my fingers, you know, the seams disappear along the wing root. It's got the right dihedral. Upside down, Miss Jane, Mr. Squiggle. Yeah, it's a great little kit. I'm pleasantly surprised. Plastic's nice and smooth. I haven't taped this edge of the upper spine together. This is something on P51 you might not know. You got that little slot there. They've done that really well. And if I just push my fingers together, you know, that seam disappears. Won't have to do any filler. There's no steps or gaps. It's a really nice, well put together little kit. I'm actually looking forward to building that one. So with that said, let's have a look, see how the Arma one goes together. Time to look at how the Arma Mustang went together, and I would say in a word that describes this kit, and that's delicate. It is quite a delicate, petite little thing, but you know, guess it's the same size as the Airfix one. But as I put this together, I was realizing more and more that this will take a bit of finesse. It's sort of like an Edward kit. I've never been a big fan of Edward. They seem to overdo things to get the same result as others that just seem to have a simpler engineering. Now, case in point is the way that this tail is engineered. This actually slots out, and the whole tail slots out. Actually, I'll just do it. I'll show you. Okay, so the rudder goes on like that, and of course the problem with this is you get the potential for a seam line. Let's get my little pointy sticky thing for a seam line here at the bottom of the rudder there, if that's not just done right. Okay, and what happens is this is a one-piece tail which doesn't have a fillet, and there's another version that clocks onto here. Now the problem with that, of course, and I've seen how Will Patterson had to do, you've got to get that dihedral right. So if it's out a little bit, you know, it's going to look wonky. Airfix had a much simpler solution. They just keyed in their tail plane. So I think that's a little bit. It's an interesting engineering thing what they've done. Oh, that's not going to go back on anyway. Yeah, and there's lots and lots of sprue attachment points. I spent more time cleaning up the sprue attachment points on this than I did assembling the entire Airfix Mustang kit. There's just so much of it, but it must be said, it fits together beautifully. Everything goes together really well. I don't think there's going to be any seams anywhere. The wing fit is conventional. It's just one piece upper, one piece lower, and I've only got that just slotted into the fuselage there, and it's a real lovely fit. Yeah, but like I said, it's just not finicky, just delicate. Okay, there's lots and lots of parts. I went over the instructions again, and it's just the interior is just jam-packed full of parts that really, are you going to see it all unless you open up that canopy? I don't know. I mean, my approach to this is to do the bare required to get it buttoned up. Got my pilots here. I'll be putting a pilot in this one, so that's going to hide a lot of that anyway. But yeah, I mean, on a par with Airfix, but a bit more involved. The flaps, for example, I haven't put the flaps on because they're only engineered to be deployed down, which is, in a word, I won't say stupid, that's insulting, frustrating, you know. So I'm going to have to cut off all those tabs there and glue it in up how it should be, how I like to do them. And yeah, I'm just a bit concerned about that tail, getting that right. So that would be my reason for for basically not recommending this for a beginner at all. I don't think you should contemplate this. Is this your first kit? No, 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 no. Do not try the Arma hobby as your first one. It might work for you if you've done any other sort of modelling, or you've got some experience. It may well work for you, but if you're first into this game, yeah, do the Airfix, or the what's called the wild card for this is get the 148 scale Tamiya Mustang, which goes together like the Airfix, and it's a lot bigger, not as finicky, not as delicate. So yeah, there it is. I'll just leave it like that, and I'm looking forward to building both. Like I said, I'm going to do pretty much the same thing with both of them. They're going to be motorized and in flight, and that tail just keeps falling off the Arma one, so just get it out of the way. Yeah, it's going to be a fun double build. I don't know when I'm going to get to it, but I'll tag you along with it and show you how I put a tiny little micro motor in the back, and then I'm going to have it exiting out here with the wires, with a rod, okay, and yeah, put them in the air where they belong. So there you go. Thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoy that. Cheers.